the idea of some suburbs that it's actually cheaper to buy and pay off your mortgage in rather than actually paying the rent.
Going once, going twice, sold! You're listening to The Property Pod.
All right, guys, welcome back to The Property Pod, your weekly engagement into real estate here in the Hobart Marketplace. I'm Aaron Horn. I'm joined at the desk, as always, by Patrick Berry and John McGregor.
Boom.
Hey, gents.
Nailed it, Az.
Yeah, pretty
Nailed
that
the
intro.
intro.
Right.
I just want to put it out there. We're trying something new there today. You won't hear it in the audio format, but what we're trying to do is get our live setup going.
Yeah, so we're getting a little bit closer to changing the show up and going live each week, which is going to be exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a dream for a while. We've been trying to sort it out, and I'm just trying to nut out this kind of crossing between people. So in the video format, I'm on screen at the moment, but I've just got to work out when you guys are going to talk and
Hopefully.
know that I hit the right button.
Yeah, it's not a means that you're sitting there just nothing but pushing the buttons all the time.
Well, it feels like I'm playing Mortal Kombat or something where I'm kind of hitting all the buttons and just being like, geez, I hope I get a
Button
combo
masher.
or a fatality. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting, but we'll get there. We'll
Yeah,
get there.
absolutely.
Love
No, things are working out all right. I'm just looking up. If you see me looking up, I'm looking up to the skies, to the gods of technology. We've invested in some stuff and we're trying to move forward with it. I'm pretty excited about this, boys.
Oh, it really does look cool. It really does look cool.
Yeah, so no, look, it's the future of the property pod. Thank you for coming along this far with us, and we'll see how we go moving forward. Yeah, this is harder than I thought.
Yeah.
The idea of talking and hitting the buttons at the same time maybe is a little harder than we anticipated.
Oh man, it's kind of like if ever I'm learning a new song, there'll be the chords, you know how to play it, then you're trying to sing, and then just nothing comes to fruition.
Yeah,
you know?
well, something will come to fruition. It'll just be lots of jumps
Yeah.
all over the place. But that's all right. We'll get into some property stuff. Before we do, though, I just wanted to cover off John McGregor. You were caught in the wild on the weekend.
Oh yes. So it was quite funny actually because normally I suppose. I remember there was a story that my brother Luke had once where he was sitting with Sean McAuliffe. And, of course, Sean, I suppose, has been a celebrity for a long time, so he's used to people coming up and asking for their photos. But there was obviously Luke had just hit the point where people were recognising him because he was sitting having a drink or dinner with Sean McAuliffe. And then this person's come over and saying, oh, hey, I'm such a big fan, got to get a photo. And so Luke's gotten ready to, grab the phone. So Sean's got ready for the photo and they're like, can you hold my phone, please?
Oh, so they got McAuliffe to take the photo.
And passed the McAuliffe to get the phone because they didn't know who the hell he was.
Well, I'm not talking about your brother here.
No,
This is
no.
a story all about you.
Yeah.
And this is you've been spotted in the wild as a property pod.
Yeah, I actually had a fan of our show come up to us.
So I don't know if-
It was amazing. She was such a cool chick too.
Yeah, so
big fan.
I've actually mentioned her on the podcast before. I don't know if I've told you this story, Pat, but Sunday morning, I get this photo. It's John Mack with a friend of mine. And she's like, I saw John in the pub. Like, I saw him at the pub. And I just had to go and tell him how much I love the property pod.
Yeah.
And I said, no, mate, he'll love that. Like,
And the beauty of going live is we have to deal with things like this.
or the beauty of going live is I've never had a cough.
ever.
One time I've decided to go for it. No, so Megan has been a long-time listener of the show, big fan. I've mentioned her before. She bought a place on Prodigy Road and she did it up and kind of this tiny, beautiful, quaint little cottage. And so it's amazing. She loves the property pod. She's, other than Nan, probably number one biggest fan.
It's funny you say that because I was also doing a valuation this week. Now I'm getting the coughs far out. And when I was doing the valuation, the guy has actually moved over from Melbourne to be able to help all the valuation load that is down here to try clear the books for this agency.
Because there's so many properties
Going under the contract,
Yep.
and so there's too many valuations that need to be done. And we got talking about Simon Presley in the marketplace, and the podcast came up, and he was like, oh, what's the name? And I told him it was Property Pod. He's like, I've been listening to that in Melbourne for ages. And he started referencing different shows where we had John's brother on and all these different things. I was
No
like,
way.
man, people do actually listen to us talk rubbish.
Oh, yeah,
It's
no, I
crazy.
can get you the stats. Like, yeah, no, people listen out there. We're not just doing this for, but we do say it's lots of fun, but people are listening. It's not just our nans. And
And I have to say, big shout. Thanks for coming to say hello. Like, because I felt really chuffed. It was a real honour to just say, hey, big fan, love the work.
Yeah.
And then if your friend was like, oh, what's this about? Then she's like, well, she put onto it and shut her up. So then we ended up with another listener,
No,
it
shout
was
out.
awesome.
Shout
So
out
thanks for
to
coming up and say hi.
Megan. And
Yeah.
she's going to work on a super yacht in the next few weeks. So she's actually leaving the States. So our listenership will go worldwide. Hopefully share it with some
The
people.
Maldives and
Something like that, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So anything could happen.
Wouldn't you love it though too, where she's written into her contract to work on the boat. At a certain point in the day, all that really nice chill music goes out. It has to be broadcast right across the boat for the 30 minutes it's on. We're listening to the Property Pod, damn it. Make it happen. Make it happen, Megan.
Yes, ABBA or someone who's on the super yacht are forced to listen to our rubbish. Oh, this is really good.
why did you go to ABBA?
I have a friend who worked on a super yacht and they had ABBA on there, or they had two of the guys from ABBA on their super yacht once. So.
Dusty is the Property Pod.
All right. We better get into some real estate stuff.
Property stuff. Yeah. So I wanted to cover off today the idea of some suburbs that it's actually cheaper to buy and pay off your mortgage in rather than actually paying the rent.
Straight off, that is crazy to even think that it's cheaper to own a house and pay a mortgage than it is to actually rent a property. Like, that's scary when you think about it.
It's one of the big considerations I had when I was looking into buying my place was kind of like, what is my rent? Where's my rent money going? And what's the point in paying kind of money nowhere or paying off someone else's mortgage?
Yeah.
And we kind of worked out the sums that we were probably paying $20 or something more in mortgage repayments than we would have been in rent. So it was a big consideration in doing that. But then, now there's a few suburbs that are coming through on this report. Where do we find this report?
Yeah, so our good mate Jared has put out this article, and he's actually got the information from one of PRD's economists. So, it's been really interesting to have a read over it. I think CoreLogic and Domain also have put out similar reports as well. So it appears that the three major people that dabble in sort of property information have all put similar articles out. And it's just interesting to see which suburbs are more expensive to rent in than they are to actually buy in.
Yeah, it's such an interesting concept.
Well, I think where I've had this discussion with people in the past, they'll, the argument for renting at the time was, well, it's cheaper to rent than buy. And where the difference would be, well, that's really useful if you're having to move every 12 months, because obviously moving in and out of the market, by paying stamp duty and agents fees gets exceptionally hard. But, staying in the long term, if you were to, would be that, all right, at the time, say you save $50 a week on rent versus buying the house, well then, provided you squirrel that money away and do something else with it, it's, it could be a better, argue to say it's a better use of your money. But the thing is about home ownership is that obviously you're building into that capital over the longest term. So hopefully, by the time 30 years runs out, you're not having to pay any ownership costs.
And if we look at this, let's look at Glenorchy, which is obviously one of the suburbs that we work heavily in. It's actually $76 cheaper per week to own a house in Glenorchy than it is to actually rent in Glenorchy. Goodwood is $63 cheaper. So, we're not talking like a couple of dollars here. We're talking big money. Look at that over the course of a year, and you're in the thousands of dollars that you're paying as well off a mortgage to a property you own.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, so I guess that's the crazy thing is that why there's so many people out there trying to buy at the moment, and there's kind of obviously we've spoken about this, the record lowest amount of properties on the market, but is it that kind of rents are at this point where it's more feasible to be a homeowner? So there's so many people trying to buy. Is that kind of the perfect storm? Yeah,
well, it is. And the report basically goes on to say that the options for affordability are shrinking rapidly. And, if you're looking for something within a 10-kilometre radius of Hobart, you've got to act quickly is what the report's saying, because it's only going to get worse as time goes on. So I think that is probably what's driving a lot of these buyers at the moment, is that they want to get into the market and actually own a property because they are worried. It makes me think, what am I doing, how my kid's going to go, and 20 years later, and what a property price is going to be. Is anyone actually going to be able to buy a property? It's scary thoughts.
I just happened to switch on the news. It was late last night actually, and I wish I could reference where they're getting this information from, but it's right on your point, Pat, where they said, say 20, 30 years ago, only 10% of parents were assisting their children purchasing with the use of the equity in their own homes, whereas now that's shifted to 60%. So that's so now like 60% of parents are helping their children provide that initial deposit, because on average, I suppose in Victoria and Sydney they're referencing, but Hobart's moving towards that. If we assume 10% is required, they need 90, 80 to 100 grand just to secure that deposit with enough money to purchase the home. So, if you're looking to get in early, I mean, there are those that, work exceptionally hard to do that. But obviously, for younger people looking to purchase early, being able to accumulate that much money in only a short period of time is difficult. So it's not surprising.
And I think one of the other things that the article brought out, which I thought was quite interesting, was that they made a real big point that you may have to start looking in suburbs that aren't necessarily at the top of your list.
Yep.
So don't sort of, turn suburbs off and say, look, I'd never live there, because you may not actually have a choice.
Yep.
You may have to accept the fact that you need to start in a less desirable suburb, live there for a while, sell and upgrade to the next level.
Yeah, well, see, and that's that premise of the rent vesting element, isn't it? And I'll often say is that, look, your first home never has to be your last home. It's really only, I suppose, been in the last, 15, 20 years where, lending restrictions have I'll just put, inverted, what do you do this? Whatever that is. But where borrowing money.
God, I hope someone watches.
But where
For everybody out there in the audio world, John did the inverted commas.
Inverted commas, that's it.
In the air.
Yeah. Sorry. Where, it has been easier to, borrow money essentially. And we have got this thought where, obviously generally speaking, living with their parents, they've got a really nice home at this point, and so they want to move out and then have the exact same home that they've just moved out for their parents. And it just doesn't have to be the case. It's like, well, your first home doesn't have to be your forever home. And I ended up just catching up with Andrew Leggett from Rams just yesterday, because I was thinking about, there's another unit coming up. I thought, no, I might. It sort of piques my interest. So I was just curious, mate, what sort of, what can we do at the moment? And the other, when we looked at sort of my borrowing capacity, is it's fine, because again, I'm just looking for a unit that's sort of even below the median. It's just going to be, the idea being cash flow positive property, but I'm not going out and trying to stretch myself to the nth degree. And it's again looking in a suburb that it's okay. It's not. I'm not trying to keep up with the Joneses in that sense.
So speaking of the suburbs, like let's just cross off on this report. Kind of where is it more affordable to kind of purchase a home than it is to be paying the rent at the moment?
Yeah, so houses and units in Tranmere, Gilston Bay, Glenorchy, Rokeby all topped the affordability charts. Goodwood, Lenna Valley, Newtown, Kingston, Bellarive and Moona also made the cut just.
Okay, so
there's still quite a good amount of suburbs that are still affordable to buy in.
Yep.
But this is looking at them versus renting in those suburbs as well.
Yep.
So, Kingston, you're paying big money to buy a house in Kingston, $600,000, but you're also paying big rent to rent there.
Yep.
So that's what they're comparing to. So it's not necessarily about being a cheap suburb to buy in. It's a cheap suburb compared to what it costs to rent in that suburb.
Yep.
So as a potential home buyer out there, would it be recommended to kind of put your alerts on some of those suburbs, so the list that you've kind of gone off, and say
definitely. But
if something comes up in this area, I'd like to be notified so that...
Yeah, you can... Definitely, if it's somewhere that you want to live in or somewhere that you see value in, you've got to have those alerts done, because you'll never know about it if you don't, because properties just disappear far too quickly. But I also think you need to look outside the square as well, especially our younger listeners out there that are trying to get their first home. You need to accept the fact that Moona and Lenna Valley, Newtown, those desirable suburbs are probably out of your reach these days.
Yep.
So you need to start accepting the fact that, maybe Baghdad, New Norfolk, Dodgers Ferry, Carlton, those suburbs that are a little bit further out need to start being on that radar. And maybe you only own them for a couple of years and then you upgrade to something a little bit closer. But you need to start putting alerts on probably those suburbs as well to try find something that's a little bit cheaper so you can get a foot in the door.
Okay, so you might find a winner in one of these suburbs where it's currently saying...
Still affordable.
It's still affordable.
But
however, your advice might be kind of spread your net a bit wider.
Yep.
And try and find something.
Yeah,
there.
I think for anyone that's trying to buy at the moment, you may not get exactly what you want at the moment, but that's just the way the market is. But I think you're going to be disappointed if you don't buy something now and then try to say, I'm going to give up now, it's too hard, wait 5 years and then try to buy then, because I think it's going to be even harder to buy something in Hobart and especially Tasmania. So yeah,
And that seems to be anecdotally reflected in the people we're catching up with on a day-to-day basis at this point. And it's been it was uncanny. We just had one go under contract on the weekend, and the buyers were lucky that it was actually the first offer that put on a property and they got it. And I just said,
What?
And I just said, guys, don't tell your friends about this because they're going to hate you.
I've got some friends that they've just finally settled on their place. It was kind of 15 offers down the road, and I just couldn't imagine putting in that many offers and like trying to envision myself in this house.
I can't imagine the time it takes to actually to look at that many houses and become emotionally invested in that much property.
Yeah.
Like, I can understand where it's probably getting to the point where people are just, I don't care, just sign something and just hope. Like,
yeah, well, I guess like that's kind of, as you were saying, what you were saying about kind of, you might have to settle. It's such a strange concept because especially when you're a first home buyer for sure, if you're kind of making that first investment into buying a home, yes, it might not be your forever home, but you still don't want to be buying
just something for the sake of buying it.
Yeah. So it's such an interesting kind of concept. Yeah. So very interesting moving forward.
oh, well, we'll just have to keep watching this and see what happens.
Oh, yeah, no, it's kind of even like what Simon was saying last week is, things could be kind of like this for a few years. So very interesting for you boys as agents and kind of the way your job or your profession may be
It can pivot overnight because Dad was telling the story. They were sitting in the board of the REIT and there was just a bit of silence. This is several years ago. And then one of them just goes, who turned the tap off? And what they were referencing in that moment is where all of a sudden, all the activity just came to a screaming halt, and then no one was buying.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, all those large open homes they had, they just all disappeared in such a short time frame. And that's the thought. Well, when people go, look, when's the best time to buy and sell? Is just when you can. Like the idea for people trying to time the market, obviously, is for people much smarter than me. But in the end, it's a purchase that's going to last you over the course of your lifetime, not the next 5 minutes. So where they go, oh, look, what's going to happen? Well, I don't know. What do you want to do now? Where do you want to be in 30 years? So it's like for me, I guess the sooner you get in that sense, hopefully, the better it's going to mean for you over the long term.
All right.
Yeah, cool. Excellent.
Well, I actually reckon this is a good spot to segue onto our second article.
Mm.
So,
I actually didn't read the second article. I was getting the live area all set up.
Look, that's all right. I can lead this one because it's only going to be a really short one, but I just think it fits really well with how we've been talking about, maybe buying something a little bit out of your area, making it your own, and then upgrading.
Absolutely.
So there was a recent article about a lady that bought a house, quite dated. She was quoted $10,000 to give the front side of the property a facelift, and she managed to do it for $1,000.
Yeah,
and just
learning to do it herself.
I did read this. This was they like kind of painted the front of the facade like it was a brick house.
And they're really simple things, but geez, the end result looks so good, and it only cost her $1,000. And I'm looking at it from my real estate perspective, and I'm thinking, you've only spent $1,000, but you've added $30,000 because it now looks nice.
Just the perception value change.
So brought it up to a place where it's kind of like your instant first reaction. I know you talk, John, a lot about like removing the butts. I know you're a butt man, but removing them butts out of.
Three next boys.
But no, we are talking about property.
I couldn't help myself with that one. Sorry. I read off this. She got and painted it like a black facade.
Yeah, that's it. So she she bought the paint in bulk from Bunnings. So she managed to get a really good deal on the paint because instead of buying just your small tin, she bought big 10 and 20. I don't know how big they go. 2 10-litre drums or whatever they sell them in.
She just went big.
Yeah, went big to be able to get the cheapest rate.
She went big and went home.
Yes.
Or was it no, go big or go home? Damn it, sorry. Sorry, Paddy. I broke your flow. Damn it. It nearly worked.
Oh, thanks,
nearly
John.
there. Nearly there. Swinging me.
In addition to that, they painted the window frames, they spruced up the front door, they painted at the roof, and they just did it with a spray gun that they, I think, borrowed from a friend and got a lesson on how to use it. But yeah, overall, they were able to take what was a 1970s basic home and turn it into what looked like quite a modern home.
Yep.
Now, obviously, the article says that they've still got lots of work to do inside, but the first impressions from the street, it just made it look like a completely different house.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I guess if you are looking to try buy something in the market at the moment, try to go in with a bit of an open mind, because there are simple hacks that you can do to really change the look of a place without too much effort.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not discrediting the element of the quality that a professional tradesperson's going to bring. However, not all of us are in the position to be able to use a trade to get the result that we're looking for. So being able to invest that time to learn, it probably took a lot longer than a professional may. But obviously, it still gets a result that they could be exceptionally happy with,
And look, this article had another really interesting fact, and I love facts and stats.
Yeah.
And this is what the article went on to say, that Bunnings has researched, and apparently over 49% of Australians are planning to complete more DIY projects in 2021 than they have in previous years.
Really?
So
yeah, that's really cool.
I assume that that's because obviously travel's off the card, so people have a little bit extra cash, so they're looking to reinvest it back in to their own properties.
Oh man, I remember when.
Well, you've been doing a lot of renos.
Oh, well, yeah, that's kind of all I'm doing. I'm actually looking into that. We've got a granny flat out the back of our place that kind of it has been gutted, and we're kind of the plan was to do it up in COVID and kind of get it all ready. Actually, the plan was to do it up, and my brother who lives in Canada was going to come and stay with us Easter this year, but. Obviously, everything changed about the world, and then also having a son, time is
really
not something
hard.
that I have.
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Yeah.
the idea of doing that is excellent. I would love to do it.
Now the idea of getting to Coles to do the groceries is a win.
Indeedy doody.
Well, this is a weird segue, but I was watching this video down the rabbit hole of video games that that took years to complete, and I'm just thinking, if you're doing one of those, where do you find the 100 hours now to sit there and chew on a giant RPG like with you boys with kids and everything else, So, when it comes to reno projects, obviously that's a huge disruption as well. But if I suppose we can't discredit how fortunate we are to have access to so many video learning, like YouTube or whatever, to just learn how to do stuff. Like, how many times have you jumped on there, Main, in this process just to go how to X?
The amount of times that YouTube has come to the rescue on just being like a simple thing where I know, like back in the day, you would have just done it probably had a crack, but just having that safety net of being like, can I change the toilet myself? Like, do I need to get a plumber to do this, or like, can I just plumb in my own toilet?
Yeah.
Well, yep, YouTube says you can. So I'm gonna.
Aaron discovered he can't.
Yeah. Well, I remember when
Sarah's angry.
Well, I remember when we were doing the house with Mack's partner, and we were renovating doing an ensuite in the bathroom. So we started looking at different tilings, because her and her parents had done tiling at their place previously, and we thought, okay, we'd built up. There was some error of competency, I suppose, between all of us. But then the complexity of doing those bathrooms with the tiles we chose and all that, we're like, there is no hope in hell. And with the 1950s old home, nothing's level, nothing's even. So the idea that we'd even bother trying to attempt that was just, it would have been idiotic, because I remember when the tiler came out, he had lasers pointing in all these different directions in the room just to make sure everything could line up. But we could certainly do so much demoing work and painting and other elements to get to that point. So then he could come in and go zoop, and just get straight into the work and disappear again. So, there's so much prep work that we were able to save ourselves money on, so that professionals could come in there and do like the really hard work that obviously only a skilled professional can bring.
Yeah, I guess just to put a button on this, like the article for the Bunnings kind of makeover is really, really good. It's awesome to hit up YouTube, and really good to hit those Bunnings magazines where they say, oh, you can change your house like this.
Yeah.
However, trained professionals are really good at what they do. And there's a reason that
you pay
the premium. I know I saw on the article a few people saying like, oh, well, if you equate the amount of hours that they did, it's how much is your time worth, and how much is the safety of.
And that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Like, I think the article said it took them something like 8 weekends to do it.
Absolutely.
So that's, 16 days they spent full time just painting.
Yes.
Well, I know
so what is that worth to them?
Well, the house that we're in, for example, at my friend's house in Moona, I think it was about a $5,000 or $6,000 job, but it was done in 4 or 5 days, while he was still able to go to work and make money, whereas it would have taken him, it would hit my friend's time frame, probably 8 weeks to do the job, So, in that sense, it was worth spending the money.
Yeah,
100%.
Indeed, it's a hard balance, but there's a reason there's professionals out there. But there's also things that you can do, as you've mentioned. Demoing and getting it ready will save heaps of time and labour on that front. So I learnt to hit up Jackson Cooper Plumbing because changing the toilet by myself, not a good idea.
Well, you're the first time you did, Pat, you guys did own a builder, didn't you?
Yep.
Would you do that again?
Can't anymore. You have to have a license.
So you don't have to have a
You're not allowed to
license.
do it yourself
Okay.
anymore.
Well, imagine if you didn't need it and, you had your time over. Would you still do that? Take that process?
I think I'm lucky because I know enough people in the industry, so I could do it.
Theoretically, yeah.
Yeah. However, if I didn't have the contacts I have, I probably wouldn't do it because there is a lot of work involved. And Abby and I spent every weekend there cleaning the site, making sure all the rubbish was removed, ready for the builders to come back the following week and start again. So we spent, every weekend for probably 6 months up there doing stuff.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
So, yeah, I enjoyed the process and it allowed us to be able to, get the house built cheaper. Well, not cheaper, just meant that we were able to put more things in that
you
we
wanted.
wouldn't normally be able to afford to do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, it's a lot of work for someone to take on board.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, due to safety and different insurances and bits and pieces now, owner builder is no longer an option.
So,
yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, crew. I reckon that is a nice place to finish up. There's probably another topic there on owner builders and tradesmen and all that stuff there. We can deep dive into another time. Shout out to everybody that's watching. Hopefully you didn't get a headache from...
I do want to make a quick announcement of what the few changes to our office, though.
Nah, hit that next week.
Hit that next week? All right.
Yeah, that's all good.
He's cutting you, John.
I'm cutting you early. My finger's getting sore from all this switching. I'll get an RSI.
We can't game like we used to, obviously.
That's right. I don't have 100 hours.
All right, boys. We'll finish it here then.
Awesome.
Yep.
2 things at once.
All right.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys.
And see you, mates.
Yeah, see ya. You have been listening to The Property Pod, recorded and edited by 414 Media House in conjunction with 414 Property Code.
This podcast is general information only, and the thoughts and views expressed is the opinion of our panel, and listeners should always seek then use their own investigation into any topic we discuss to ensure they fully understand their own situation.
It does not constitute and should not be relied on as purchasing, selling, financial or investment advice or recommendations, express or implied, and it should not be used as an invitation to take up any agent or investment services. No investment decision or activity should be undertaken on the basis of this information without first seeking qualified and professional advice.